You're not going to believe what your government tried to hide from you, or maybe you will, I don't know. He warned the public, you, about the Canadian financial outlook that was not just challenging, it was downright scary. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Behind the Headlines. I'm Cody Vatcher. He's Ian Connerty, and we've got an episode for you like no other because the Parliamentary Budget Officer issued a dire warning about Canada's finances and how the government is moving to replace him as fast as possible.
Ha ha!
The question you should be asking is, why are they working so fast to replace this guy? Plus, the untold story of the Liberal MP who broke with party ranks to criticize the budget. What's the real story behind that headline? We're going to get into that. And finally, we're also going to talk about some of the good things in the budget, and Ian's got a lot that we're going to be talking about. I just want to thank everybody for the reaction last week. And, if you guys want the truth, then you need to keep liking, subscribing, and commenting your thoughts below. So let's kick this off right away, Ian. This week, the mainstream media finally woke up. After months of noise, the real story is here. A budget that's set to define Canada for a generation. Now, whether that's good or bad, that's for you to decide. So let's watch a clip of David McGuinty, defense minister, talking about some of the good things that are in the budget, like increased military spending. And then we'll get your reaction on the other side.
Minister, today the pay raises for the hardworking men and women of the CAF come into effect. It's a big part of the budget and one of those rare things all parties appear to support. You were a few weeks ago very confident that your party could garner enough support writ large for the budget from the opposition. That vote is tomorrow, as I mentioned in the introduction. Are you still confident? Will the budget pass?
I have hope in the team through my House Leader's office that are working hard to negotiate their way forward. I hope that all of us can come together and pass such an important budget. As you say rightly, on the defense side alone, over $2 billion in pay raises, which kick in today, back retroactively to April 1st. So we're going to see how it goes on Monday. And I have others who are driving that bus, but right now I'm just pleased to be here in North Bay visiting one of our bases.
Okay, Ian, so you just saw the National Defense Minister talking about obviously very well-deserved pay raise for the members of our Canadian Armed Forces who defend this country. As I was explaining in the introduction, you've been very good at digging up some of the bad parts. There were a few things that you found that did go over well. Can you share with the audience what you found?
Yeah, well, in fairness, there are a couple of good things in this budget, and the first one is the spending on the military. I know David McGuinty, and I consider him one of the best ministers that Carney has. $2 billion in pay raises is long overdue, and it's about time that we met our NATO commitment of 2% of GDP, which McGuinty says we're going to do by next spring, which is great. But also, an $81 billion military budget allocated over the next 5 years will replace outdated equipment, including fighter jets and other equipment that's needed to protect our northern border.
Right. And
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, our northern border, I think, is one of the most vulnerable parts of this country. And I don't say that as to denigrate Canada, but the reality is that the Russians and the Chinese are doing military exercises in our backyard. And I'm sure there are a couple submarines that we don't even know are sitting off of our water. So
Putin machines. Anyway, moving on to two more things that I found in the budget that I think are very good. There's a reduction in immigration targets, which will take pressure off rental housing, youth unemployment, and healthcare waiting times. And then finally, there's an infrastructure program, an infrastructure program for municipalities to build more hospitals, roads, sewers that are needed all across Canada. I give those parts of the Carney budget 10 out of 10.
Well, there you go, 10 out of 10. I want to comment something on the immigration file because I know a lot of people have been focused on the implications for Canadians when it comes to immigration. But the one thing that I want to continue to highlight is that there used to be a promise in this country that you could come from any country in the world, whether it be war-torn, a poor country, a rich country, you could come to Canada, and as long as you follow the rules and you work hard, that you can get ahead. And that promise is just not there for immigrants who come to this country. So and then let's move on. We're gonna talk about Nate Erskine-Smith. This clip is about a week old, so we're a little bit behind the headlines, but don't. But while the mainstream media and their liberal pals were busy fawning over their own spin, real story exploded. Liberal MP Nate Erskine-Smith delivered a stunning public rebuke of his own government's budget. He didn't just disagree, he drew a line in the sand, declaring that the plan falls well short of the wartime effort that Canadians were promised. This is just a little bit more than a backbencher's quibble. It's a searing indictment from the inside. Ian, we're going to watch part of that video, and then we're going to get your reaction on the other side.
To the bad, or more fairly, where expectations were set at a level that we failed to meet, including on the question of generational investments. First, stalled climate action. I don't want to be too dismissive here, as the Canadian Climate Institute rightly highlighted the importance of a strengthened industrial carbon price. But apart from that promise, there was nothing new. Yes, we are moving forward with strong methane rules and clean investment tax credits, and these are key pieces. But we are also cutting tree planting, moving away from an emissions cap, winding down greener homes, and the budget offers no new money for climate action. On housing, we've got the beginnings of Build Canada Homes, a tax cut for new home buyers, and some dollars for housing enabling infrastructure that are important, but unfortunately very unlikely to move the needle on development charges to a degree we would like. It falls short of these specific promises in our platform, and it unfortunately falls well short of the wartime effort that many of us thought we'd deliver.
Okay, there you go, Ian. So, if people want to go watch the rest of the video, I encourage them to. It's on his YouTube channel. But let me get your reaction to what I think is a pretty stunning rebuke of the government's budget. And look, to be fair, he talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But go ahead and tell us what you think.
Well, again, I know Nate, and he's a very good MP from the Toronto area, and he's disagreed with publicly with the Trudeau government many times in the past. So this is nothing new for him now to speak his mind. It takes a lot of courage to go against your own team in Parliament, and Nate does that often, and he deserves credit for that. When the British parliamentary system, which we're modeled after, was established, there were no political parties. Every MP was an independent MP. And after parties were formed, many backbenchers became trained SEALs who just showed up to vote with the government. Good for Nate. It also takes pressure off Pierre, who had one of his MPs switch over to the Liberals. And it shows that Carney has his own problems in his own caucus.
Yeah, I think you're right on a lot of what you just said. I mean, obviously, I'm the conservative, so I'm going to take the more cynical side of that. And especially because we spent the last few weeks talking about one floor crossing and somebody leaving for a family issue. I take issue with the total media hypocrisy covering this as a family-friendly dispute and, calling these floor crossings a crisis for leadership. I think the party has to wake up. But in my opinion, in this video and previous videos, I got the impression that he's a guy who's got sour grapes after getting kicked out of cabinet. He wants to be premier, and he's trying to separate himself from Carney on some things in the same way that Doug Ford is trying to do. I think the biggest play that he is making in this video itself is for the radical left environmentalists who control many parts of the NDP party, because if the Ontario Liberal Party wants to make a comeback, they have to take not just from the Conservatives, but they also have to take from the left wing. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. You're not going to believe what your government tried to hide from you, or maybe you will, I don't know. He warned the public, about the Canadian financial outlook that was not just challenging, it was downright scary. He spoke the truth the government didn't want you to hear. And here's the kicker. What did the government do after this public shaming? They didn't fix the problem that he was making suggestions to. They move with lightning speed, a speed usually reserved for national emergencies, to do one thing, and that's replace him as soon as possible.
It's a really serious fiscal outlook. And we don't lightly use the word unsustainable, right? Unsustainable means you don't have the option of saying, maybe I'll wait a couple of years, I'll see how things go. It means if you don't change, this is done, right? So it's very serious.
Some would say that they're firing the interim parliamentary budget officer, but just for our viewers, the interim has a maximum of 6 months. After this clip that came out about, let's say, 2 months ago, they're just moving to replace him as soon as possible. So why are they doing this, Ian?
They don't like criticism. And, when Mulroney, I think it was Harper, set up this office, he was okay with an independent office. And they gave reports that were not entirely favorable to his government either. Good for him. And that survived through the Trudeau years. But Mr. Carney has such a thin skin that he can't take criticism from anyone. And, let's fire him, like you would do if you were the CEO of a big company. You don't like it? You're fired. Just like Trump would say.
Yeah. Look, I'm shocked that with the help of, liberal talking heads, you called them liberal spin doctors, but with liberal talking heads, they've been working overtime to cover for this government all week. All the last 2 weeks, it's been the talk of the fake story about Pierre's leadership being in trouble. But the reality is, often our off-camera conversations, the reality is that this is not a political game. People are hurting out there, and they're much more concerned, the government is much more concerned with clinging to power than the scary financial outlook that this country is facing. The other thing that I would say, and it kind of ties in with the budget, is I firmly believe that this country should be run like a company. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's very simple. When you have a company, you're going to make investments. You make investments on the company's credit card, but they're not investments if you don't get a return on it. It's just spending money. So I think what he's doing here is he's blowing the whistle for Canadians. His job is to criticize the government. Do you have anything else to add, Ian, or what?
Yeah, just that this budget is voodoo economics. And the deficit's even worse than what he warned. Over the next 5 years, the total deficit will be $300 billion. And already we're paying on a deficit of $78 billion. We're paying $55 billion a year on interest payments, which is now more than we pay to the provinces for healthcare.
Right.
If this country was a business, it would be legally bankrupt.
Yeah. We would be getting foreclosed on, and we wouldn't have a credit rating, even though.
And we'd have a new CEO, to try and
we would have
bail us out. And here's my wallet. There's no money at the end of the month, just like he said.
Here's my wallet. The last thing that I would add to that is something that I think is very crucial for the listeners to understand. He also said that the government's debt to GDP ratio is not going to line up with what they're saying in the budget. And I remember it's very convoluted. It's economic gobbledygook. But one of the things that I had mentioned last week is the government projects over 5 years that the deficit is going to be decreasing. But I had said I cannot find any government in the history of our great confederation that has been accurate in predicting the deficit and where it will be even 1 year from now. So if people from home, if they want to take that benchmark and want to compare it to next year, that's what we should be holding this government accountable to. So with that is our last topic. We made record timing here today. We got through all the topics in a way that I hope that our listeners at home will be able to digest very quickly. And just some housekeeping notes at the end. Like I said, if you want more commentary and analysis that is unafraid to take you behind the headlines, you listened last week, obviously, because You know, we got lots of viewership, lots of likes, lots of engagement, which is the most important part. We love hearing from you. So please continue to do what you've been doing. Like, comment, subscribe. You'll find us on Apple, YouTube, and TikTok for our quick hits. But with that, we're Cody Vatcher and Ian Connerty, and this has been Behind the Headlines.
See you next time.